Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's so good to have you here. Please remember to like and subscribe for more maths videos. In this video today, we are going to be covering how to multiply and divide fractions. Make sure that you've checked out all the previous videos on what to do with fractions. If we look at our first example of 1 over 3 times 2 over 5, we're going to realize that multiplying fractions is super simple. We identify our multiplication, and all we're going to do is we're going to take the numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. Now the only thing that you can notice or note, two things with our fractions and multiplying them, is number one, if you have a mixed fraction, you're going to first change it into an improper fraction. So that's step number one. Number two, it's just going to make it a little bit easier, is if you check for yourself if there's a way to simplify the numerator and the denominator. Remember, with multiplication, you can simplify by cross-cancelling. Okay, so you can cancel or simplify down a numerator with a denominator. Not two numerators, not two denominators. Remember, you can also only simplify down over a multiplication sign. Never, ever, ever simplify down over a plus or a minus sign. So we have numerator times numerator, 1 times 2, which is 2, over 3 times 5, which is 15. If we look at our next example, we're going to identify a multiplication sign, and we're going to see, can we cross simplify, can we cross cancel? No, nothing simplifies here, so we're just going to do numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So our answer is going to be 3 times 1, which is 3, over 7 times 4, which is 28. Looking at our next example, we're going to identify the multiplication. Now, we have 9 over 20 times 10 over 11. Now, if we look at this 20 and we look at this 10, I have 1 in the numerator, 1 in the denominator, but they can simplify. What do I mean? There's a number that goes into both of those numbers so that they can become a little bit simpler. Now, you don't necessarily need to simplify as you're multiplying, because just so long as you remember that at the end, you'll have to simplify your answer. So this kind of just cuts out that simplification step. But either way, you're going to simplify regardless. So if we look, we've got 20 and we have 10. So I'm going to say cross simplification, 1 numerator, 1 denominator. What number goes into both of those numbers? 10. 10 goes into 10 one time. 10 goes into 20 two times. So now I have 9 over 2 times 1 over 11. So now I can multiply the 9 and the 1, the 2 and the 11. So I'm going to have 9 times 1, which is 9, over 2 times 11, which is 22. Looking at the next example, I have 3 over 5 times 11 over 15. So I have multiplication, and I can see that there is something that can be simplified. I've got a 3 at the top, and I have a 15 at the bottom. So remember, we can cross simplify a numerator, any numerator, with any denominator. It could even be in the same fraction. So we have 3 and we have 15. So I'm going to say what number goes into both 3 and into 15. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 15 5 times. So now I've simplified. So now I'm going to take the numerator of 1 and I'm going to multiply it with the numerator of 11. And I'm going to take the denominator of 5 and I'm going to multiply it with the denominator of 5. So I'm going to have 1 times 11, which is 11, over 5 times 5, which is 25. Now, what's going to happen if we have a whole number multiplied with a fraction? Well, you're going to think any whole number can have a denominator of 1. So a whole number, if you think about any number, 5. 5 could actually be written as 5 over 1. Doesn't change the value. If you think about 10, 10 over 1. 120, 120 over 1. 1 over 1. So we have 30 times a half. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change this 30 into a fraction. How am I going to change 30 into a fraction? I'm going to say 30 over 1. So I'm going to put it over 1, multiplied by 1 over 2, so that now I have two fractions being multiplied together. And by putting the 30 over 1, I haven't changed the value of the 30. I've just changed the way it looks. Now if I look at 30 over 1 times 1 over 2, I can see over here I have a 30, over here I have a 2. One numerator, one denominator, and there's a number that can go into both of them. What is that number? 2. 2 can go into 30 and 2 can go into 2. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 30 15 times. So now I would multiply the 15 with the 1 and the 1 with the 1. 15 times 1 is 15 over 1 times 1 is 1. But I don't have to write it as 15 over 1. I could just write it as 15 because every number actually has a denominator of 1. Next example, I can see that I have the number 360. So I want to start by making that 360 a fraction. So in order to make it a fraction, I'm going to keep the 1 over 5 the same. And I'm going to multiply that with the 360. I'm going to put it over 1. So it will be 360 over 1. Now, looking at the denominator of 5 and the numerator of 360, I can see that that can be further simplified. To simplify it, I'm going to say what number goes into 5 and into 360? Well, 5. 5 goes into 5 once, and 5 goes into 360 72 times. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the numerator times the numerator, the denominator times the denominator. So I'm going to have 1 times 72, which is 72, over 1 times 1, which is 1. But I don't have to put the denominator of 1, so I can just make it 72. Okay, looking at the next example, I have 2 and a half. So that's a mixed fraction. So I'm going to start by changing that mixed fraction into an improper fraction. Remember, when we're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing fractions, we always want to first change our mixed fraction into an improper fraction. So we are going to say 2 times 2, and then we're going to add the 1. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, over the original denominator, which is 2, multiplied with 7 over 10. So now I'm going to look and I'm going to see if there's something that can simplify or something that can cross-cancel. So if I look at this 2 in the denominator and this 7, there is no number that goes into 2 and into 7, so I'm going to leave them. But if I look into this 5 and this 10, one numerator, one denominator, I can see that those two can simplify because there's a number that goes into both of those numbers, and that number is 5. So I'm going to say, how many times does 5 go into 5? It goes in once. How many times does 5 go into 10? It goes in 2 times. So now I'm going to multiply numerator with numerator, denominator with denominator. So I'm going to have 1 times 7, which is 7, over 2 times 2, which is 4. Alright, looking at the next one, I have 1 and 2 over 11. So that's a mixed fraction. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the 1 with the 11, and then I'm going to add the numerator of 2. 1 times 11 is 11, plus 2 is 13, over the original denominator, which is 11, multiplied by 8 over 9. Now if I look at this and I look at the numerator of 13 and I look at 9, the denominator, I can see that there's no number that goes into both of those numbers. If I look at 11 and I look at 8, there's no number that goes into both of those numbers. Both 13 and 11 are prime numbers. Remember, a prime number is a number with only 2 factors, 1 and itself. So now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to multiply numerator with numerator, denominator with denominator. So I'm going to do 13 times 8, which is 104, over 11 times 9, which is 99. Looking at my last example, I have two mixed fractions being multiplied together. So I have 2 and 6 over 7, and I have 1 and 1 over 5. So I'm going to change the 2 and 6 over 7 by multiplying the 2 with the denominator of 7 and then adding the 6. So 2 times 7 is 14 plus 6 is 20 over the denominator of 7 multiplied with, I'm going to do the same thing with the 1 and 1 over 5. I'm going to change it into an improper fraction. 1 times 5 is 5 plus 1 is 6 divided by 5. Now if I look at the 7 at the denominator and the 6 in the numerator, there's nothing that cancels between those two. However, when I look at the 20 and I look at the 5, I can cross cancel those or simplify those. So in order to simplify those two, I'm going to say what goes into 20 and into 5? 5. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 20 4 times. Now I can multiply numerator with numerator, denominator with denominator. I'm going to have 4 times 6, which is 24, over 7 times 1, which is 7. I do hope that this video has helped you to understand how to multiply and divide fractions. Remember, the more you do, the better you'll be. I do hope to see you soon on my channel. Remember to like and subscribe for more maths videos. See you soon.